Welcome to the Eskrima podcast. My name is Jason Enai. I'm an Enai Eskrimador. If you're tuning in for the first time, make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications, like and comment. Today we're going to talk about training and what gets us going, if you will. You know, some of us, when we train as students, we don't always get to choose what we're practicing in class, but I tell my students that are instructors that I've mentored over the years that, you know, what is taught is not always what is learned, and what is learned is not always taught. And for us as instructors, that's just to gauge the effectiveness of our lesson plan and if we've achieved our goals. But for students, you can draw extra value. It's up to you to try to figure out the value that your instructor is trying to impart upon you. Hopefully that's what they're trying to do, right? And then also, what's the extra value? What other things can you learn that are a little bit, say, between the lines, if you will, especially because you've been to other classes and so you can connect things together. But as we go into our training, we can think about, you know, what do we do good? You know, what are we avoiding that we could do to make us better? And what's the one thing that we could do, you know, in improving something that we already kind of know, right? And having a goal by class, by week, and by month, and by year, as those goals will obviously change over time. The more long-term ones will change, right? It'll help shape your progress, but also direct your mind and your efforts towards a particular goal. Those goals should be reviewed on a daily, class-by-class basis, as well as monthly and quarterly, annually. Also to gauge, you know, maybe you didn't achieve the goal. Maybe you achieved the goal and didn't even realize it. Maybe you need to shift the goal. We got to also remember, too, that sometimes we do things and we get excited about them, not because they're exciting necessarily, but because, you know, we worked out in such a way as we got a dopamine or a serotonin drop. We worked hard, we worked out, we had fun, it was exciting. And while that's good, and we should include that in our training, right, because it helps keep us motivated, it's a trick that our body plays on us, right? And it's not what necessarily makes us truly better, right? If you're looking for that kind of excitement, that's fine. Just understand that in addition to that, you also have to get appreciably better. More output doesn't mean better, right? Like, a fight really only lasts, like, a long fight is 10 seconds. That is a long fight, right? I once timed myself on cutting technique, and I can cut 2.96, I think. At the time, I was cutting 2.96 cuts per second. How did I come across that? Figure that out? Well, I videoed myself doing cutting techniques with a live blade as fast as I could, and then watched the timestamp, counted out the cuts over the burst of strikes. I think it did something like, I don't know, 150 strikes or something like. I don't remember. It was a lot. And then, you know, just took the timestamp, did a simple division, and came out with 2.96. So about 3 cuts a second. And that means that you have to be pretty efficient, right? That means that you have to be pretty safe because it's a live blade. But if that's the case, that's 30 cuts. How many cuts do I really need? Right? That's a long fight, 10 seconds. So we need to think about that in our training and what we do and what constitutes better and more effective, right? Your fight that you hopefully will never encounter or have is not going to involve a judge, a referee, a timekeeper. There will be no rules, right? There will be no safety equipment. You will have only the preparation of going to class on a regular basis. So with that in mind, that should shape or can shape the way that you're going to train, that way that you do train, right? I look at my classes and go, what today can I give to my students? I look at them, I look at their overall ranking. We wear these bracelets here now in class when we're not in formal uniform, wearing our sashes, and everyone has their medallions if they have a medallion rank. But I look at them and I look at what I think their rank is if I can't visibly see their ranking device. to give me an understanding of what the skill is in the room if there are students that I'm less familiar with in the room. Sometimes there's returning students from far away that visit on a, weekly, monthly basis. I have a student that comes from Lake Tahoe. I teach in Los Gatos, California, so that's 3-4 something hours, and they come maybe once or twice a week. Once or twice a month. So looking at that person, and having an understanding of where they're coming from. Students that I've had students, drive 30-45 minutes to come to class twice a week. So, and then there are students that come in every week in every class, and you have a better understanding of them. So you just look at them, have an understanding of them, and what can we give them? Do they need striking skills? Do they need, where are they in their curriculum? Do they know how to do, lock reversals? Whatever it is. But I'm trying to give them something in general, and that's directed by the curriculum, where they should be in the curriculum at the given rank that they have, and my familiarity with them. That's not the same as your goal to train. You might want to be more efficient. You might want to have better perception of attack. You might want to work on any number of attributes, better timing, faster, to be stronger, right? Have better stance and posture, better flow, better rhythm. These are attributes. As a martial artist or as a fighter, you have 5 elements, right? You have knowledge of martial arts or fighting techniques, and that knowledge comes from some kind of source. Usually it's a teacher, right? And you have over time developed skill, and that is a result of practicing. And that's with or without a teacher. You should be at least as much without a teacher as with a teacher. You get more value that way, and that means very good solo practice, and hopefully, if you have a chance, a training partner that you can meet with once in a while too. And that's especially necessary if you're only training once or twice a week. Right? And with that skill, maybe you've done some exercises and drilling, stress exercises that help you develop a little bit of experience using those skills under pressure. And then you have attributes. These are things that teachers don't give you. Training partners don't give you. These are things that you give yourself through disciplined, regular practice. And my dad always believed that you shouldn't come to class expecting to get warmed up and stretched. You need to warm up and stretch yourself before class. Come early. That was his feeling, right? He shouldn't have to teach you calisthenics and have you run through calisthenics to get you conditioned. That should be something that you do on your own, right? But either way, whether it's done in class or not, you do need to take care of those things. There are different exercises in your class that will develop precision, develop timing, develop rhythm and flow. Things like speed and power, especially when we come to muscular strength, right? Those are things that you should be doing on your own. Flexibility, you should be stretching in before and after class, but you should also be stretching between classes, right? To give you more flexibility, more versatility. So once your attributes are, brought to a particular level that you feel is good enough, then again, what is good enough, right? Then there's also the consideration of psychology, the willingness to use things when and knowing when to use things, and being able to use those things in a way where you feel maybe not vindicated, but at least justified in the use of your skills, right? You want to be able to live with yourself when you use your martial art, and you want to be able to use it. There are plenty of people that are very good at martial arts that just are not able to pull the trigger, if you will. So when we go in our training, it's putting ourselves in the mindset of, what we're going to gain. And sometimes we need to build our confidence. That's when you work on things, or you concentrate on things that are successful for you. if you're training to do a fight, the last 2 weeks of your camp, if you're doing a competitive fight, or the last week of your fight, you're not there to work on new techniques, new movements, new strategies and tactics. You're going to work on reinforcing the things that you know you can rely on. So sometimes you just work on those things. It builds your confidence and it further ingrains those movements in you, right? If you're stretching, you look at a stretch goal in terms of how you're going to get better, then you're spending time outside of your comfort zone. You're spending time outside of your comfort zone in order to get better, right? And you're trying to find places where you make mistakes and train in such a way as those mistakes immediately or gradually get eliminated. That's the goal, right, for you to get better. And sometimes we just don't want to go to class. Now, I'll say this, and this is a saying that a number of my students have, and I also adhere to, which is, I've never regretted a training session that I went to. I've regretted not going to a training session or not being able to go to a training session. But even when I didn't want to go, I'm always happy that I went once I've gone and I've worked. Even if it's a subpar performance, it was better than not doing it. And there's a lot of physiology there that's why. But there's also this idea that every class that you put in, every minute of training that you put in is a class. It's an hour or 2 hours, whatever your workout session is. It's a minute to many, many minutes to many hours that you've invested in yourself. And that kind of investment always pays dividends. Always pays dividends. Especially if it's a regular investment in yourself. So sometimes you don't want to go anyways, right? When that's happening, it's really useful for you to have your goals in mind when you're feeling less motivated. It's always useful for you to remember the things that excite you. So, at the end of the classes that I teach today, and that I've been teaching for many years now, I've used this idea of focusing myself and my students upon these things. What did I do good today? How well did I train today? And then, what do I want to improve? Right? Maybe I want to improve my parry, right? And so I can see myself doing that parry correctly. I can feel the way that I have to move my body and my arms in order to produce that technique correctly and reliably, right? The feel and the look of it, right? And I know what I'll say to myself, what other people say about me once they see me do that correctly. So I ground that idea of that goal of improvement in my senses, concretely in my senses, specifically 3 of my 5 senses, which is seeing, feeling, and hearing, right? And then we focus our mind on, what was the value today? Maybe it was I went to class when I didn't and I feel great. Maybe it's I got better timing, or I worked on my timing today. Maybe the instructor had a lecture or spoke about something, or even just the lesson plan itself that brought out the importance of position relative to my opponent, and how that creates advantages and also can cause me to be in a bad position. And lastly, we always think about what we had fun doing, right? And so these things help us, these thoughts, these ways of focusing our mind towards reproducing positive outcomes class by class by class. Imagine if you're training with me and you've just had a great class, you've got a little bit of a workout or a lot of a workout, maybe you picked up a new technique or you got better at a drill, and I'm asking you, hey, what'd you do good? And you look at me and you're like, wow, I really did this block really good. Like it really worked for me today. All right, I'm like, that's great. How do you want to get better? Well, there's this other drill or this other exercise, and I just like my timing to be better so I could go faster. So what does that look and feel and sound like, right? And how exciting is that when we're working on that together, if you can imagine, right? And see to yourself when we're talking about, like, what's your value? And you're like, oh, this is like, the first class, or 5 years of classes, or this is my 300th class. And, today I really learned the importance of timing, as an example. And we discussed that and how to develop timing. Because, everybody can teach you, anybody can teach you how to throw a punch, how to deliver a kick, how to put a block up, right? The how of martial arts is not as interesting as the when, right? So we talk about timing, and that's great. And then we both together talk about what we had fun doing together, and that experience that we have together as we train brings us to the next class and the next class. And so I see you class after class, seminar after seminar, year after year, with an accumulation of experiences and a deepening of your knowledge through a sharpening of your skills, right? This is the way that we progress in the United System of Eskrima. This is a very specific way. And so I'm speaking, in very general terms, but very concretely what I'm talking about is having a full understanding of how people develop themselves and where they focus. I teach that, the first skill is one thing, right? And the second skill is another thing. The third skill, and these are the top 3 skills, the third skill in martial arts is focus. And I tell you, I used to take my daughter to this one guy who had a really good kids program, and I taught him for quite some time. He later wouldn't admit that I was his teacher. He wouldn't say that my dad was his teacher, but I taught him first, and then brought him to my dad so that he could have the experience of learning from the founder of the system. But he had a nice children's program, and my daughter was probably 5 or 6, and they're running around and having a good time, and they're training, and that positive experience is part of what encouraged my daughter and helped develop my daughter. And now she's 25, going to be 26, trained with me for about, I want to say, 15 years, 14 years straight, and gotten better. And all of that is a result of me thinking about, how do I develop this person, my daughter? What can I give her? What is going to be exciting about that? What is going to be the end result? And how am I going to achieve those things, right? So when you're doing that for yourself, or you're doing that for another, what am I going to give that person, right? It always goes back to seeing yourself training with your teacher. You're looking at me as your teacher, and you see yourself learning from me for a week, for a month, for a year. You're looking forward to the next 6 months of classes, the next seminar, and the next year, whatever it is. And you're coming back with these experiences and this knowledge and this skill, right? And developing the right psychology so that you know who to use it on, right? Too. You're going to use your martial art mostly on yourself. I don't know if anybody's ever mentioned that to you, but that's going to be the truth of it. You're going to use it to calm yourself, and you're going to use focus, which is what my daughter was trying to learn in the very beginning in those little karate classes. I'll see you on the training floor.